and the winds are stronger. You've got to be stronger to throw through them and the defenses and all of that. But I believe that he does have room to get better. So I look at him perhaps differently than people that look at him and go, man, that's it, man. He'll be the same Brian Hoyer 1 year from now, because I don't believe he would be. I believe given an environment to develop and another year to improve himself, I believe he can continue to improve as a quarterback. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he will, but again, given the fact that he has to improve, given the fact that he's not been at his best, and I think we all know that, people who are in the know, I would say that he is what he is. He's a little bit better than a backup. I disagree with those who say he's a backup. He's a backup if you have Tom Brady. He's a backup if you have Peyton Manning. He's a backup if you have Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. In other words, if you have one of the best quarterbacks in the game, yeah, he's a backup. But he's a quarterback, I think, who is pretty much a rank and file guy. He can get you to the playoffs, I think, but I don't think he can win a Super Bowl ultimately. And so since the Browns don't have a guy as good as Brian Hoyer, in my opinion, in their pipeline developmentally, then he's the best you've got. But unfortunately, he's not going to be around next year, either by his choice or the team's choice. So I think you're seeing the last few games of Brian Hoyer's Cleveland career. So it doesn't matter that he's going to get better. All we know is that he has an opportunity to get the Browns in the playoffs. And so I think if things break right and they get some continued health at key positions, I think he'll end up leading this team with all of its injuries, with all of its pockmarks, with all of its problems to the playoffs. I don't think they're going to do it, but he has a chance to do it. And I've been saying it all year. It depends on him. If he plays out of his mind, they'll go. If he doesn't, if he's average or below, they will not make the playoffs. So I don't think that we'll get to see in Cleveland what Brian Hoyer will end up being. Just suffice to say that all the things you said are true. If they give him time, season, some more of a season next year, I think he'll be okay, but I don't think he'll be around.
Tell you how that what you said there. How many times have we said that about guys? They're gonna be okay. We're just not. We didn't get to see what they were in Cleveland by the time they got there. We've said that once or twice before. Kendall, my friend, I'm with you. I do think that the path. There's not going to be a wild card coming out of this division. Whoever wins this division, I think, will be the playoff team coming out of the North, because they all play each other twice down the stretch in the last 4 weeks. Browns have Cincinnati and Ravens. They all have each other a couple of times. So it's going to be big. Of course, that second Bengals game is looming, but it'll be fun to see. I do think that the Colts defense gives the Browns offense a chance to do some of the things that they do well this week and maybe get themselves into a bit of a rhythm, but that defense better show up to keep up with Andrew Luck and the Colts offense. I know you don't do predictions, but I do believe that the Browns have a chance, as you said, to win this game, but it's all hands on deck. Everybody's got to do their thing, and we'll have to see how it plays out. But I'm with you on everything you said, and all these questions will answer themselves if everybody just relaxes and let everything play itself out. Everything will answer itself.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the die is cast for an exciting month of football in Cleveland for the first time in 20 years, basically. Yep. And that's a good thing. And so I have to tip my hat to the Cleveland Browns who are there, not the guys on injured reserve as much, because it's truly been next man up. And Mike Pettin has done an outstanding job of not necessarily just coaching this team, but I think he's done an outstanding job of setting the tone in the building and letting people know that there's some intelligent design, there's some thought put into what the Cleveland Browns are going to be from now going forward. So I don't have anything but good things to say about the Browns. And even if they don't win another game, 7-9 is better than 5-11 all day. So they've improved, and they're continuing to improve. And next year and the years beyond this, the Browns promise to be a good team. So I'm not too concerned about it. I would like to see them in the playoffs, but, you never know, and so they have to get it done this year while they have an opportunity.
That's it. Windows don't stay open forever. You never know when they're going to come back around. Kendall Lewis, the BSK. You guys can, of course, check with them at the BSK Says podcast, at the BSK Says on Twitter. Kendall, my friend, have a great week. Enjoy the game. We'll talk about it next week. We'll see if it's still Hoyer time or if it's Johnny time or what. We'll see when we talk next week.
Yeah, and I got my new podcast out, so you guys go check it out at mtafcle.com. That's mtafcle.com, and find out the Indianapolis Colts scenario right here with my man J-Rock, and, of course, on morethanafan.com.
Absolutely. Our friends over at More Than a Fan Cleveland. Kendall, you have a good time, my friend. Good weekend, and we'll catch up next week.
All right, J-Rock, you too.
You got it. I'm glad we could get that in. Perfect timing. Oh, man, now we're over. Let's do it. Hit the break. Get the news. When we come back, Indians fans, this is what you've been waiting for. The voice of the Cleveland Indians, Tom Hamilton, on the other side of the break after the news. Coming up next here on The Fix.
We here at the Sports Fix want to make all of your dreams come true.
What about my dream?
Edith, I told you I can't build your candy house. It will fall down. The sun will melt the candy. It won't work.
It will if it never rains.
Oh, maybe not all of them. Get your fix on the Sports Fix.
This is head coach Gary Waters at Cleveland State, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix at AOL.com. That's thesportsfix at AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
The Sports Fix is now available every day on the world's largest internet radio service, iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeartRadio app, subscribe to the show, and get your fix.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Doug Brown. Florida State quarterback Jameis Winston did not answer questions at his student conduct hearing, but he did read a statement into the record. In that statement, which was obtained by ESPN, Winston repeatedly says he had consensual sex with his accuser and denies raping or assaulting her. The two-day hearing ended Wednesday. The Florida Gators want Jim McElwain to be their new football coach, but McElwain has a $7.5 million buyout at Colorado State, and right now that's holding up the deal in Gainesville. Colorado State is refusing to lower the buyout, and Florida is refusing to pay the full amount. A week after getting routed by the Eagles on Thanksgiving, the Cowboys get back to work tonight in Chicago against the Bears. That game kicks off Week 14 in the NFL. The Cowboys now one game behind the Eagles in the NFC East. The game started with the 76ers attacking the wrong end of the floor, but it ended with their first win of the season after 17 straight losses. In Minnesota, the Sixers beat the Timberwolves 85-77 and avoided tying the Nets' record for most losses to start a season.
It's the holiday season, which means there are probably lots of football fans strapped for time. Then again, if they're at Buffalo Wild Wings, they can pick up a few gift cards during a timeout. Time saved, gift bought. In other words, a win-win. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports.
Now, back to the Sports Fix.
Indian fever. Catching fire with everyone. Indian fever.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live, Hour 2, getting rolling. A few minutes into Hour 2 here, but you know how we do it here on the Sports Fix across the radio network. Thank you guys, J-Rock, Jerry Myers, back with you here, live on the air, getting ready to go to the phone lines in just a moment. I know a lot of you guys out there excited about this one. Tom Hamilton, the voice of the Cleveland Indians, getting ready to join us here on the Sports Fix. Always get extra excited when it's a first-time guest on the show, let alone somebody of Hammy's standing and reputation. You guys know, I'm just going to go ahead and say this now before I get him on the air, but you guys know, we say that he's going to think I'm only saying this because he's on, but you guys know how many times we've said on the show over the years that Cleveland fans have been lucky, fortunate to have some of the best broadcasters across the board in their sports. I mean, all of them. Over the years, we've talked about the different ones, and Tom Hamilton, no different, top of his game. Very excited about this one, you guys, and we're going to talk about, not only talk about, but give you a chance to win at the end of this, a copy of the new book by Terry Pluto and Tom Hamilton, Glory Days in Tribetown, talking about the Indians and Jacobs Field, specifically the early part of that era through 97 or so, and we're going to bring you a chance at the end of this to win a copy of that. Phones are not open because Hammy's on the line, so you can keep the conversation going on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixcle. Email us, thesportsfix@aol.com. I'm going to go to the phones, delay no longer. On the phone lines right now, my guest, very honored to have him, the voice of the Cleveland Indians. You gave him that name. We all did. Tom Hamilton. Tom, thank you so much for being with us today on the show.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jerry.
Oh, thank you very much for being here, as I said, and I wanted to go ahead and get that out before I brought you on the air, so that. But seriously, I've brought it up before, not just saying it because you're here with us today, but you, along with, Cleveland fans have been very fortunate over the years to have some great broadcasters helping bring the theater of the mind to them through the radio, and you are at the top of that list, and I'm very honored to have you here on the show.
Well, thank you. That's very kind, and I've been the lucky one to have a job like this, and secondly, to have a passionate fan base to broadcast to, because that's what any broadcaster wants, is people that care, whether they're happy or mad. That sure beats apathy, and this has always been a great fan base.
Absolutely, and you've gotten a chance 25 years deep now to see that fan base at the depths of the apathy, perfect word there, and at the absolute peak of the great times there. Talk to me a bit. I guess from the beginning, I got a kick talking about Glory Days in Tribetown right from the beginning, as you talk about your initial run there with Herb's score and some of those conversations, the road trips and all of that. Talk to me a bit, if you don't mind, about getting started with the Indians and the beginning of the journey you find yourself now on the other end of.
Well, for me, it was really no different than a player, in that, you'd worked your way up the ladder, whether it was high school or then college and eventually minor league ball, starting in A ball. So it's very much like a player. When you get that call to the major leagues, you know how fortunate and blessed you are, and it's kind of like winning the lottery, and I was lucky enough for that to happen, starting with the 1990 season, and then to work with somebody like Herb. At the time, I had no idea how fortunate I was, but that really was a tipping point for me, because Herb was such an iconic figure in this town, and yet he never acted like he was, and he was terrific to me, and the 8 years I had with him were ones that I'll always remember fondly, and he gave me some of the best advice I've ever had in this profession, and because Herb was so well thought of in this community and by Indians fans, it gave you some automatic credibility just by working with him, and that is something, at the time, you don't realize how lucky you are, but I certainly do now.
Absolutely. And, Herb's score, of course, that era, you guys together, still to this day, it always happens, I think, when an iconic broadcaster that's long time moves on, it's always tough. I always feel for the guys that have to, come afterwards and follow through. And sometimes, even today with Rosie, we've got listeners that still, I understand, but, things move forward. I think you guys, the combination that you have now is fantastic. But you talk about some of the beginning advice that you got right off the bat. I thought it was funny as you recollected the story of you and I believe it was the PR guy for the Indians at the time, talking about the potential for a good season, and Herb listened for a few minutes and said, "What are you guys talking about? This team's gonna stink," and taught you right up the front to be very honest about the projections of a team, but then explained to you how you don't do that on the air. Every game is super important to